to the gods. You already know, man. Yo. Bohemian wizardry, you fraud them seeds be killing me. The enemy is close. We both lies on our.
Thank you all for coming, and also thank Brother Vince for, giving me the opportunity in order to come to my Bohemian family. Yes. We are here, finally, as we say on our radio show, finally. We can say that we are finally, because it's been a work in progress for 2 years now, almost 2 years. Yeah, so I guess we'll start with some question and answering first, and then I get into, my little thing after I, gauge the questions. Hopefully y'all have some.
Well, we hearing a lot about neighborhood, and what really is neighborhood, and how is that going to affect the planet?
Right. Well, a lot of people around the world are taking pictures of the sun, and they are seeing another object which looks like another sun around in that perimeter. What is going on is that is actually Sirius C. All right, you have Zigutolo, Polotolo, and Emiya. Emiya is Sirius C. Zigutolo and Polotolo is Sirius A and Sirius B. Our system actually is a child or birth from an implosion that took place from Sirius B, in which that formed our sun and this orbit with our planets. So every 25,000 years we travel with Sirius A and Sirius B in an elliptical pattern through the 12 zodiac signs. All right, so actually we are a child of our set, which is Sirius A and Sirius B and Sirius C. Sirius C is Nibiru or Nibiru. The word Nibiru or Nibiru means planet of the crossing, but it's not actually a planet per se. It's actually a star, and it crosses our path every 3,600 years. So now that time has happened and is happening, and so therefore people are now able to take photographs of this second sun. Now, I spoke to Dr. Derek Blair about maybe, how long ago was that in Greensboro when he came? That was about 4 years ago. And we was having a conversation, and he was talking then about there was going to be another sun that was going to come. All right, so we were speculating that this must be the actual planet that is part of Sirius C, in which that was larger than our planet, in which that is coming through with it, because he has stated that there is another sun that will appear, that there would be 3 suns, instead of just 1 or 2. Now, when I did my research on Nibiru, if you go to Nutricize by Dr. Layla Africa, on the numeral page 15, he actually has a photograph of the brain being blown up to the equivalent size of a car. And in the brain, hovering directly over the pineal gland, is a galaxy-like cloud. All right? From the side view, it actually looks like a UFO. And this is in our brain. So if we're able to raise ourselves up, in other words, our Kundalini, which is that Orsetian force within us, that's the Mother Goddess principle, at the base of the spine, up through its particular caverns or caves, which is actually the chakras or shinkaras, also referred to as the ritus within the ancient Kemetic texts. It is also referred to as the souls of Ra. The ritus are called the souls of Ra. They always depicted a rit as a symbol of a lion, which symbolizes, of course, that force or power, in which that emanates throughout the body. And there's 7. We're now moving to a 9 chakra level and eventually a 12 chakra level. All right. That's what's going on. How we know it? Because even in the book of Revelations, the first chapter, it shows you that the Son of God in his right hand has 7 stars. Well, those 7 stars change to 12 when you go to Revelation, the 12th chapter. Now it says above the woman's crown are 12 stars. So it went from 7 stars to 12 stars. So we know that we are developing extra organs, or what we call endocrine glands, to accommodate the extra energy in which that will be produced by these suns being in the sky. That's why they're trying to cover up these skies now with what is called chemtrails. And of course, chemtrails are chemically hybrid of what we refer to as poisons or toxins, but in particular aluminum, which is a mind-forgetful agent, barium, which is a carcinogen, which means that it can cause cancer, is a cancer-causing agent, as well as also it has bacteria spores, mold, in which that is part of this base, in which that is caused diseases, which is called, one is called Morgellin, all right? And this Morgellin causes lesions on the skin, all right? And what we've also found out is that even do a further examination, there is what is referred to as nanobots or nanotechnology, in which that is part of this base of chemtrails. And these nanobots has these fibers and this gel-like substance, in which that once it gets in your body, it causes these skin lesions, because it's very difficult to get out. Now, what we speculated is that these particular nanobots or nanotechnology is in the body to insert different information in the DNA. All right? In other words, they don't want this awakening to take place, and this is the time of the awakening. We've moved now from what is called the Kali Yuga age in the Sanskrit teachings, all right? We refer to as from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. They did theirs a little bit longer by various ages in India, or Hindu-Kush, because that's who they was called, the Hindu-Kush people. And that particular, when they did their calculation, it was called the age of Kali, in which that lasted a particular time. And then they also did what is called, that was part of the moon. Now we're going into the golden age. And this golden age is now called Sata Yuga. And this Sata Yuga symbolizes for us the age of Heru, which is the age of truth, the age of knowledge, information. And that's the age that we're in. Of course, this particular age for us, based on our calculations of zodiac, only lasts 2,160 years, in which that correlates to a 25,000-year renewal of history, or 25,928 years to be right and exact. Elijah Muhammad referred to as a 25,000-year renewal of history within the teachings. I think it was through the 1 through 40 student enrollment lessons of the 5 percenters of Nation, Gods, and Earth, but then within the teachings of the Nation of Islam, is in their student enrollment lessons also. So this is where you will find that 25,000-year renewal of history, and it's called a Holy Quran, and that's no coincidence, because when you get into the word Holy Quran, it don't mean what we think in the interpretation and the translation by the Arabs. All right, that was a trick. It means sun calculation or chronology. All right, so it means that sun book or sun time is dealing with the time of an age. All right, and every 25,000 years with a renewal of history is actually talking about us traveling through the 12 zodiac signs every 25,000 years. All right, and actually it averaged out to around 25,928 years, come to around the average of 26,000 years. But that time symbolizes us traveling through the 12 zodiac signs. So now we have done a complete year a great year, as it's called, and now we're going into a new year. So Nibiru symbolizes us entering into that new cycle. All right? Now, let me go back to the one inside our brain. That's very important to me because as the Kundalini comes up and it hits the pineal gland, it beams the soul, because that's where the soul actually, the concentration of what is called soul is there. But the soul is throughout our whole anatomy, it's throughout our whole 76 trillion cells. But the concentration is there in the pineal gland, which sits in the center of the brain, which is called the master endocrine gland of the physical body. Now, that endocrine gland is very important because it deals with our rhythm and our sleep patterns and what is called biorhythms also. Let me just put it like that. And so it produces between the hours of 11 a.m. at 8 p.m. at night to 7 a.m. in the morning. It produces what's called melatonin. And from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. At night, it produces what is called serotonin. These two are precursors to what is called melanin. Now, melanin is very important because melanin is what gives us our complexion, our pigment, all right? We produce what is called melanocytes, in which that actually gives off that production through our skin. Melanocytes has the properties of black holes, all right? Meaning that is actually able to absorb all frequencies, all right? And these frequencies can range from everything from TV waves to radio waves to infrared waves to gamma rays, cosmic rays, visible spectrum, ultraviolet light, X-rays, all these particular waves, and not in that order, but all these particular waves you are able to absorb and actually convert into energy. All right? And this is the thing in which that is fearful for those who don't produce an overabundance or a significant amount of melanin, because that same sun in which that can give us these particular gifts and powers, the cosmic energies that comes in, what is also referred to as prana. Within the Christian text, it would be called Holy Spirit. All right? We know that because you go to 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, it tells you the gifts of the Holy Spirit. The gifts of the Holy Spirit is what? Healing, miracles, speaking in tongues, interpreting tongues, discerning the spirits, faith, knowledge, understanding, which is comprehension, which also is intuition. So all of these particular gifts are given to us by the Holy Spirit, which is prana, or chi, as we refer to within the Asian text, or in particular China. If you go to Japan, it's called ki. You go to Hawaii, they refer to it as kahuna mana. And hence manna, the same thing in the Old Testament of manna falling from heaven. That was the food for 40 years and 40 nights. Notice that every time you come up with 40 days and 40 nights, just like the Noah's story, it rained 40 days and 40 nights, right? You go to the Jesus story, he was tempted by Satan for 40 days and 40 nights. That number 40 is talking about the foundation. 4 is symbolic to a square, 360 degrees, or a circle, which symbolizes the square symbolizes physical consciousness, right? Your foundation. The circle symbolizes spiritual consciousness, all right? Your essence. Now, in particular, it's talking about strengthening your physical foundation, which is your physical body, because the body is the temple of God. So 40 days and 40 nights, if you are able to absorb enough chi and place it within your lower dantian, you become one of these super beings in which that is talked about. And yogi masters know about this, Tibetan masters, Buddhist masters, Taoist masters, African shamans. You know, this is known throughout the, occult population of the world, or what they refer to, which means hidden, or what we refer to as the indigenous populations of the world. You know, this is things in which that we've been practicing for a long time, but this is why they took away our knowledge. And this is why it's so important for them to try to get us to forget who we are. So now they also have GMO food, all right? I'm glad it hasn't hit y'all like it hit us in the States as of yet. The States, I mean, they are more than 70% of the grocery stores, 70 to 90% of the grocery stores actually now are GMO'd or chemically processed or preservative slash types of food, you know. Oh, okay. Same thing here or worse. Right.
Yeah, we basically have export only.
Right.
Everything that comes here,
So
export only. That means that
they're sending it down. So that means it's coming from Monsanto. Then this is what we was talking about. Right. Monsanto is the ones in which that has done this then. And the crazy thing is that we live, you know, like 40 minutes away from Monsanto. You know, so we see it on the way going towards, from our house going towards Fort Bragg. You know, we see Monsanto right there. You know, and they even took the sign down from Monsanto and put up another sign, making it look like it's subsidiary. Right, Clear Path, but that's Monsanto. We seen in the newspaper they was advertising for jobs and Monsanto. You know, so they have to do that because otherwise there would be hundreds and thousands of people protesting them. You know what I'm saying? Right outside their gates with signs. All right, so this is the trick that they're doing because they know that they're doing some wrong things. So now we know these Frankenstein foods, all right, and it's going beyond being just a hybrid because nature can make a hybrid if it chooses to based on, you know, the illness of the people in which that is within the area at that time. You know, nature has a way of being able to heal, all right, and bring about a healing for us. So if nature does it, that's one thing. However, now you have man tampering, and they're trying to do everything they can. They have what's called the Terminator seed, in which that now there will be no seeds, and you will have to come back to them annually to purchase the seeds in order to grow your crops. This is what Monsanto is doing. So this is really what is going on. You know, as far as they're concerned, is to control the seed population of plants. This is why they killed off a lot of the bees. All right, bees was abundant, you know, when I was growing up. You know, I mean, I lived in New York and bees would be in the trash can. And I'm like, yo, y'all ain't supposed to be there. Y'all need to find some plants, you know. But they couldn't find none, you know, in New York per se, you know. that's the concrete jungle, you know. But I remember, but now there's no bees. You know, we live in the South now in North Carolina, in the country, in the woods. Bumblebees are plentiful. They survive, but no bees. You know, no honeybees. You know, so I learned recently that Morgan Freeman, he's a beekeeper. He has a bee farm. So he's trying to repopulate. You see what I'm saying? He's doing his job in repopulating. He can't do a lot of talking about it. You see what happened with Prince. You know what I'm saying? Prince, you know, started doing a lot of talking. He got on the TV show. What's the name of the TV show? The guy who didn't like Obama, Tavis Smiley. He got on Tavis Smiley's show and started exposing the chemtrails to the population. This is Prince. This is what Prince did. And so Prince got on there and said, I learned this from Dick Gregory. And he started talking about, you know, the chemtrails, population control agenda, and why they doing it. Because that's what it is part of. It's part of their population control agenda. You know, and of course, melanated people is who they want to control as far as population is concerned. All right, this is why we have the highest abortion rate in the world. You know, that's just in particular North America alone. You know, there's more abortions than there are people in prison. You know, and that's a devastation alone with the population that's in prison. We got almost 2 million people, males and females, in prison. That's the largest, matter of fact, that's the largest prison industrial complex is there in the United States. All right, so what we do is that's why we try to separate ourselves and go back to our indigenous roots, all right, and state that we are Americans, You know, even if we come from the islands, what is now called the West Indies, but it is also referred to as Americana. You know what I'm saying? And so we say that we're American because when you look up in the dictionary, Webster's Universal Dictionary, 1937, it states American are Aboriginal, copper-colored natives. All right? That's the title. That's the particular definition. And the original name was called Meru. Meru, M-E-R-U, Meru. Now that is also an ancient Egyptian word. Meru or Meri was the name of our set. When you do it plural, it's talking about the children of our set. And we are called the children of our set or the children of Ra. And Ra is a form of our Sa. And we are the children. And matter of fact, when you look up the word that associated with children of Ra, it comes from the word Mesrem, M-E-S-R-E-M. Now the Bible calls Egypt Mesrem, right? But it's spelled M-I-Z-R-A-I-M. But Misram and Misram is the same word. And that's where the origin of the word Muslim or Muslim comes from. It's talking about the word, a child of Ra. So this is the things that when we talk about the interpretation from Arabs, in particular Pale Arabs, when they are trying to interpret or translate, they're not using the ancient Kemetic or Tamarian or Egyptian texts. They're trying to go off of their colonialized version of our story because they came in and, colonialized Egypt. They was not there originally. All right? The Pale people originally, as we know, came out the Caucasus Mountains, and then they spread it out, into the various areas, in particular and form that caste system that we know of within India. Okay? But there was melanated people all over the globe for billions of years, in which that, if you see my, probably my latest video, Know Thyself, as well as also Moorish cosmology, zodiacal sciences. In both of those videos, I go over the fact that there were beings here 2.8 billion years ago. Billion, not million. And how we know is because the Smithsonian tried to hide these facts. And the information came out in the Scientific American magazine. All right? And this was actually during the 1800s. All right? So, we like years behind, more than 100 years behind. You know what I'm saying? But in the magazine, it specifically stated that there was a blast carried out. All right? Now, there was one that took place in South Africa, in which that they said that there was metallic spheres that was blown out of the caverns, all right, or blown out of the rocks. And they checked and see what time, because based on the age of the rocks and based on the design, they calculated that it had to be at least 2.8 billion to 3.2 billion years ago, based on the rocks that it was embedded in. And they found hundreds, more than 200 of them. All right? Smithsonian tried to hide that, but magazines such as Ancient American Magazine, Discovery, I think it's ID, and also Nexus Magazine, they release some of this information monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly, depending on which magazine. But they release a lot of this information, so if y'all can, get online and see if y'all can get those particular magazines, start getting them down here, because that will also help to enlighten the people here and break them from out of just the Christian-based religion as far as believing in white Jesus coming back to save them. Because that's really what it is, and that's the reason why they respect, this Albion so much, is because of that paradigm that they've been given since childhood. We grew up under that same system, but I knew something was wrong at 5. I'm sorry. I watched Sesame Street, and like I'll be telling people, I was a master at Sesame Street. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a song that came every day. One of these things just doesn't belong here. One of these things just doesn't belong. And so they always showed you 3 things, and then one thing just didn't belong. And I always was like, yeah, that don't belong. That don't belong. So I'm in church, 5 years old. Black congregation, black missionary board, as we would say. Black secretary, black superintendent, black preacher, black choir, black deacon, black usher, white Jesus. One of these things just doesn't belong here. One of these things just doesn't belong. And it hit me at 5. I remember, you know, and I'm up in there, this isn't right. So some of us can, you know, pierce that veil. Others need a little bit more help, need a little bit more, you know, push to, you know, to get them, you know, because as they say, you can't bring a horse to water. Well, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But, you know, you can get them there, you know, at least to what they call the trough. You can get them there, you know, at least maybe dunk their head in it.
Be careful not to drown them.
Right, not to drown them. Don't drown them. Right, don't drown them and choke them. Just dip their head for a minute. I mean, if they can take it from the pastor when they doing the baptism, then they should be able to take it from you. All right, so that's what's been going on somewhat. As far as Nibiru, as that energy comes up through the 7 chakras, or what's called the 7 churches that needs to be open, or what's called the 7 seals, that energy flows through the body. And then you have meridians, all right? These meridians, as you learn how to circulate that Kundalini Shakti energy, and after it meets that, what is called Kundalini Shiva. Kundalini Shiva is the soul embedded inside of the pineal gland. Kundalini Shakti is Set. So Kundalini Shiva is actually a form of Asar. So when they two meet, there's a merge that takes place between the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. All right, and they become engulfed in blood. Now, there's no coincidence that the pineal gland looks like the head of the penis, and the pituitary gland looks like the opening of the vaginal area. So, as these two merge, there's a sexual production in which that takes place in the brain. This is why everyone will tell you that sex takes place first in the brain, but they don't tell you the science behind it. So, what happens is that from that production comes forth the child called Heru, which is called Christ consciousness, or as the Bible referred to it as Jesus after the order of Melchizedek, because that is Melchizedek, all right? That is also Prophet Muhammad, the last seal of the prophets. That seal has now been broken and has been opened for you to take access and journey into the heavens, because that's what Prophet Muhammad's story was about, was journeying into the heavens. He was on a Baruch, which is some type of white lightning type of animal, which symbolizes form of Kundalini. All right, Kundalini, if you've seen it, is not fire. It actually is a silvery, whitish color. And that energy comes up. It's called Mercury. And this is the alchemical practice of transforming what? Lead to gold. Lead is the root chakra. And as it comes up to the crown, it comes up into the gold. Hence, the golden sun disk around the top of the head is developed. And, you know, the word, as we say within English, Jerome, all right? The word Jerome is the Latinized version, which means holy man, of the word Hermes, or Hermes, which is a form of Tahuti. The word Hermes, all right? Tahuti, we know, is where we get the word Jehuti, which is the ancient Kemetic or Metu Neter foundation and pronunciation. But what we find out is that the word Jehuti is the word Jew is embedded inside of it. So even the so-called Jews, the real Jews, which was the black Hebrews or Israelites, the word Jew stems from that word, from Jehuti. So that means they was followers of Jehuti, which is Thoth or Tahuti. They was the followers of So what was the 7 principles of Jehuti? You have mentalism, you have correspondence, you have rhythm, you have vibration, you have cause and effect, which is called karma, all right? And you have polarity. These are the 7 principles of Hermes or Tahuti. This is what the 42 books of the Emerald Tablets, all right? The Emerald Tablets is just one of the 42 books, let me put it like that. But there's 42 books of Tahuti, all right? We have the Pymander, and we have the Emerald Tablet. So we still have 2 of the 42 books, all right, that we have access to. All right, so I also recommend those books too that you can get in order to get more into that particular legacy. So really, when the so-called Jews saying that they are followers of the Jewish faith or Judaism, they're actually talking about Jehuti, because the word Jehuti is actually the Hebrew pronunciation of the name who? Judah. Ask a Hebrew how to pronounce the word Judah in Hebrew, and they say Jehuti. Huh? Hold up, that's the same name in ancient Kemet. Well, you come to find out that Hebrew and Arabic are the daughters of Melchizedek, and that more than 75% of those 2 languages come from Melchizedek. Matter of fact, the scripts that they come from is called Moritic script and the Demotic script. These are the 2 scripts that those languages actually come from. Arabic comes from the Demonic script, and Hebrew comes from the Moritic script. But they are both were spoken within Hebrew, within the Melchizedek, or what is called the ancient Kemetic language, or Temerian language. So this is why they both state that they had a mother tongue. That was the mother tongue that they were referring to. All right? That was the mother tongue that they was referring to. So this is why when you learn these principles, you are talking about really exercising and opening and activating yourself, which is your chakra system. They're all based on alchemical practices, internal alchemical practices. This is why we find in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 3:16. You know, most Christians love quoting John 3:16. I said, well, you need to learn about Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do ye not know that your body is the temple of God? To me, that's one of the most important verses in the Bible, because it actually takes you back to God being in your physical body as compared to something outside of yourself, and you looking outside and worshiping something outside of yourself, and you always have to wait or depend upon an analysis or some type of sign or symbol in order to see if it's going to manifest. But if you understand God within yourself, then you understand that it comes through meditation, it comes through prayer, it comes through positive decrees, it comes through, your internal workings, as compared to something just external. So that's what we also have to get back to, and it's a hard mastering. It's not something in which that just happens overnight. Because once again, we've been indoctrinated for so long. That was our foundation, from birth on up into early childhood, or years, So it's a paradigm, a negative paradigm that becomes detrimental to us that we have to overcome, Hopefully that answers the question on the Biddle. That's the galaxy-like cloud, like I said, that's in the center of the brain. And so when all set rises through the 7 caves, she awakened or saw to produce Heru. And that Heru actually is called Neb Heru. Neb Heru means the golden light, which is talking about that light around the head. Ashe. Yes.
My question is, I would say in the past 10 years, there's been an increase in knowing ourselves. What I find difficult is introducing someone to a starting point. Like the basics of why it is they need to abandon what the system has taught us and begin their journey into finding themselves, knowing themselves. In your experience, what would you say is the best starting point?
Right. Well, me and the brother was talking about that on the way over here. There's a bridge right now as far as like people who watch YouTube or videos. You know, there's some things I don't agree with, but it is a bridge into this information. And I would say probably in the best analysis is Pastor Ray Hagen's or someone who's dealing with this information and breaking the chains. You know, the chains would be the white Jesus mythology as being a historical person as compared to Jesus being actually our Christ seat. Jesus itself is actually the flesh or the physical body, which is held together by the breath. So that's the first thing for them to understand. He doesn't teach this, but this is what I teach, because this is my understanding, overstanding, and understanding based from my research for the last 25 years. Now, that's because Jesus, from my breakdown, comes from the word Yeshua, which is in Hebrew. Yeshua, Yahushua. The word shu is in the middle of Yahweh. All right? Now, if you look at Yahweh or Yahweh, shu is in the middle. Now, for me, I'm looking at the Old Testament, the God in which that was worshipped was Yahweh. That's what the God was called, Yahweh. Of course, others pronounce it Yahweh or Yahuwah. But it is still Yahweh, all right? Now, in the New Testament, the Messiah happens to have the name Yahweh, but the word shu is embedded inside the middle, all right? So Y-A-H, but then S-H-U, and then W-A-H. So Yahweh is there, but shu is embedded inside the definition, inside the middle, in order to show us that Yah and Wei symbolizes the lower self, the higher self. And what is the medium between the higher self, or the lower self and the higher self? It's the breath. The breath is the mediator between the two selves, in which that once you master the breath, you've mastered the unification principle in which that creates that oneness within yourself, which is the oneness of God, as they say. So the breath is the unifier of that of those principles to create and promote that one self. How we know that is because in the Holy Quran, Circle 7, within also the 101s or 102s of the Moorish Science Temple of America, or the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, you would see in there, it speaks about how many cells are there. All right? I believe it's question 65 and then 66, but how many cells are there? There's two selves. Name them. Lower self, higher self. Well, what does the higher self do? What is the higher self? The higher self is, and I'm paraphrasing, but the higher self is mercy, love, and right. All right? What's the lower self? Everything that slanders, that harms. So, individual who's on their lower self, you can see in their actions, that's what they do. Everything they do turns into a disaster. There's always some harming, always some hurting, there's always something that's going on with them. All right? When you're in your higher self, that's mercy, love, and right. You're dealing with mercy, you're dealing with love, you're dealing with, with righteousness. So it shows you the characteristics of the two. Now, what give you that? What you find out is that shu, all right, is the mediator, which is the breath. How we know it's the breath? Because when you go back to the Kemetic script or Tamarian script, you find out that shu was the personification of air, which is the breath. Now, I don't think there's no coincidence that Jesus was called the Word made flesh. Because how are you able to speak? You're able to speak or produce words, and that's by what? The breath. Right? Because you have to use air from the lungs in order to pronounce linguistically, etymologically, logically, that's the only way you can do it.
The flesh.
Right, your flesh. So Shu, which is the personification of air, Yahshua means that which holds the body together. How we know? Because there's two forces in science. They taught you this: centrifugal force, centrifugal force. And these two forces is called push and pull. And these two forces hold your physical anatomy together. Without the breath, you decompose. With the breath, you can what? Become or be composed. When a person get upset, a person would say, you need to compose yourself. Why you compose yourself? By breathing.
Slowing down the breath.
Right. So when the breath is no longer in the physical anatomy, then you start to what? Decompose. So we know that when they speak about Jesus and him being the Word made flesh, it's talking about the Word in which that forms your flesh. All right? So there's nothing wrong with understanding Jesus from that way. Now you don't have to take away what a person is dependent upon, but now you just change the interpretation and give them an understanding of what they're really saying. Because right now, just saying Jesus Christ, like the way that a Christian does, they have no concept of what that is.
Well,
They just going along because that's what mommy told me, daddy told me, grandma told me, granddaddy told me, great-grandma, great-granddaddy, and nobody knew what that was. They didn't know. So the thing is that we have to give them a new interpretation and understanding of this information, so that they can have it, and our children more so can have it, so they won't be under the same detrimental thought or slave mentality, mental chains and bondage that we were placed under. They can start out with understanding, well, now when someone say Jesus, we got a concept of what they're really talking about. Or when they say Messiah, and you get the word Mes, which is the word within ancient Kemetic teachings, meaning to be born of. Born of what? Well, born forth from your mother, but born forth of prana, which is Ra. Ra is also another form of what we refer to as that eternal energy or force, which is also referred to as your divine soul. All right, if you go to the ancient Kemetic teachings, you'll find that Ra was called the old God, the oldest God, hence the ancient one. Now, we think of the ancient one in terms of just a man on a throne or Melchizedek, because he was called the ancient one in the Old Testament. But really, that was talking about your soul. All right, the word Melchizedek is the origin of the word Melchizedek is actually Greek. Melchizedek is Greek. It has Hebrew components, but it's Greek. But if you go back to the origin, it's called what? Malku Sutek. Malku Sutek. Malku Sutek is the ancient Kemetic word for what we now refer to as Melchizedek. And the word Malku, all right, which means glorious one, Malku, all right? The word Malku means glorious one. The word Sutek means, in the literal translation, power, all right, black power, or that force, all right? So when you put them together, it becomes the glorious one, which is talking about the physical body, the glorious body of melanin. That's really what that means, all right, in its rough translation. So Malku Sutek, which is Melchizedek, is actually, that's the origin of that particular word. Instead of just looking at it from a Greco or Hebrew Greco translation of it, as compared to us looking at it from more of the Kemetic African way of looking at it. All right, we get a better translation when we look at it from our perspective. Okay, so I just want to say that too as part of that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Will we be doing some Qigong and Tai Chi together in the sun?
We definitely can. As long as, not raining and anything.
What's the easiest way? I mean, is there any other way to open the chakras besides meditation?
Yeah. Affirmations, positive decrees. In other words, if you have within your mind that you want to be open to all possibilities, positive possibilities, infinite possibilities, and you have a positive mindset, you can actually open those 7 seals simply by thought. And actually let Kundalini raise up through you. All right? Some people open it through a traumatic or dramatic experience. They crying and then all of a sudden, zoom. They don't know what just happened, but it comes, right, sometimes automatic. I give you an example of what happened with me several times. In 1998, first time I realized my Kundalini was actually talking to me, communicating consciously through my brain, which is through dreams. Me and her were sitting down at an airport, and we was watching airplanes take off. It was a female, just a sister, and I didn't even know, and we were just building and laughing and laughing. It seemed like it was just for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden I was like, what is your name? You've been sitting here building all this time and I don't even know your name. And then she asked me to give her a pen and paper. So I gave her pen and paper and she wrote Nitya. Nia. And so she gave it back to me, and as I was looking down at it, and I was trying to figure out, in my mind, in the dream, because I was lucid. In other words, I knew I was dreaming. And I was trying to figure out in the dream, Nitya. I know I seen this word somewhere, and I was trying to remember what that word meant. So I'm reading it, and I'm looking down. She touched me on my shoulder. And I come back, and actually, as I came, I actually orgasmed. Well, dream, what they call wet dream. And I was like, hold up. I got to go and find out who this was, because you just tapped me on my shoulder. That don't happen. So I said, whoever this was, that was some power, because that was Shakti, Kundalini Shakti, for real. And so I went to go look it up, and sure enough, found out that was Kundalini. When you go and find out, even in Africa, Nia was a name for Kundalini. I looked up in India, Indo-Kush, amongst the Tamil people, which is called the Pre-Dravidians. It was Kundalini. So I'm like, oh. So she done came to me in the dream, hence consciousness. And the reason why we were sitting there watching planes take flight is because she was telling me that she was getting ready to ascend through me. She was getting ready to ascend. I'm getting ready to come up. So, there you go. Just be joyful and happy about what's getting ready to happen. I'm the sexual energy, and I'm getting ready to come up. That's what that was all symbolic to. And I come up, ascend like the airplane that you're watching here with me. I'm getting ready to ascend up, and that's what she was telling me. So these are just some of the dreams that you have to pay attention to, and when you figure out what is going on, all right? And of course, I'm a male, so she came as that feminine principle, and that's why she was called the Mother Goddess Principle. Within the sisters, she might come as a male. Okay? Yes.
Kind of riding where you are. The other day, I took my nephews to see the Jungle Book, and there's a scene in the Jungle Book where, I don't know if you remember the story as a kid, but he ended up in the jungle, and the snake that came down from the tree. Well, in the clip in the movie, she's talking to him, he's hearing this voice, and she comes slithering down, and he asked her, who are you? Her name was Ka. In it, and I thought that was, just quite interesting how I guess my question is to speak a little bit more on the snake, which is the Kundalini energy from my understanding, but the Adam-Eve principle concept. Now how they have this whole, the snake came down and tempted the woman and just touched her.
Well, because, like I said, she symbolized sexual energy, so that's what he was coming into puberty. And so it became more predominant. The Kundalini energy became more predominant. That's why they was doing that talk between each other, because that was symbolic to just like in my dream. All right? She was talking to me, I'm talking to her. I didn't even know what was going on in the dream except I just know I was enjoying myself and having a good time talking. You know, and, you know, that's rare because my wife would tell you I don't do a whole lot of talking unless I'm doing a lecture. So to be doing all that talking, you know, I knew something was going on, number one, you know, but, you know, once again, that's your most intimate spirit, you know, which is Kundalini, Holy Spirit. That is also a form of your Holy Spirit, is Kundalini. And so the name was Ka, which is the ancient Kemetic word or Metrunetian word for what? Spirit. That's what it means. So the Kundalini is symbolic to Holy Spirit. You know, that's why when you see Pentecostal holiness, you know, they jumping all around and they, you know, they might be even foaming at the mouth and, you know, see what it is that they can't control their Kundalini. Huh? Right. Or hitting you, you know, right. You know what I'm saying? Because I got hit before. The lady jumped up and just went and said, pow. I was like, oh! In church, and I'm like, okay, all right, this means this must be one of them signs that say it's time for you to go. You know, but that's what that's symbolic to. So it was saying that Eve was symbolic to Kundalini. And how we know that because the word Eve, you have the word Hawa. All right? That is the ancient Hebrew name for Eve. It's Hawa. Hawa is the same name as Hava, which means wife. This is why she was called the mother of all living things in the Bible, in Genesis, because she's the mother of all living things. Now, hold up. All living things? So that's not just who? Humans. That's what? Nature, right. She's Mother Nature, Medu Nature, or Maya Nature. All right, which is Mother Nature. So, in other words, the divine word. All right, she is not just the divine word, she is also the divine force. That prana, as we was talking about, Kundalini prana. So the serpent symbolized that energy because the serpent slithers on the ground like this. If you notice, when you see it on the sine waves, you know, of course, normally we see it in a hospital. That symbolizes what? Right, life. So that's why when the serpent goes like this, to us, in nature, we seen it as life. So hence, Hawa symbolized the serpent because she was the mother of all living things. The serpent was Kundalini because it comes up, remember, in an elliptical pattern, like the brother was going back there. You know, that's the way it comes up, in an elliptical pattern. And so it's the exact same. The serpent goes in an elliptical pattern. Matter of fact, when the serpent sheds its skin, based on the occult lectures and teachings, it symbolizes the soul leaving the body. Right? That's what it symbolizes. You know? And so understand, you know, when you're looking at the serpent, it's not the interpretation in which that's been given to us. Because the Jews, or, you know, Jewish people who was converts after the burning of Jerusalem in 70 AD are the ones who are now attempting to give us an interpretation. And then that interpretation goes forth through the Catholic, all right, interpretation, who gave it to individuals called Jane, Calvin, as well as also an individual by the name of Martin Luther. Martin Luther, who nailed the 98 Theses on the Wittenberg Church. He's the one who gave us the Protestant movement that we know of now. And behind him came Jane Calvin, later on to concrete the Protestant belief system. And who came out the Protestant belief? Basically everyone you know, Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal Holiness, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, the Mormons. Everybody came out of that particular movement of the Protestant, because as the Catholics say, if you're not Catholic, then really you're not a Christian to begin with, because the word Catholic meant universal. They was the universal church. All right, this is where they say that they took all the teachings of the world and they unified it into one school of theology. As perverted as it is and as it has become, you know, that was the original intent of the Coptic, who was actually melanated people. All right, that was their original intent, and that was during, you know, around the time of the Nicene Council of 325 AD. Now, there was around 318 bishops. One got excommunicated, whose name was Arian. All right, Arian did not agree with what Constantine and those particular bishops was getting ready to do. All right, and he didn't agree with it. And so he said, I'm not going to be part of this, and he ended up getting excommunicated from out of the proceedings. During those proceedings, we come to find out that the basic concepts of what we have now as the tenets within Christianity, or Catholicism, which is the Catholic Church, and then of course within the Protestant movement, now it takes, that's where it came from. Actually, it was from that particular council, right, called the Nicene Council. All right, and so we understand is that that's where they formed what's called Serapis. Serapis was a byproduct or a hybrid of two ancient Mechu Neter symbols. One was called Asar and one was called Apis. They took the A off and it became Serapis. And that's how they formed Serapis. Now, Apis was actually the form of a bull, all right, which is Taurus, actually. All right, and that means that had to been formed during the time of what we refer to as Moses. Because Moses had a similar story when they was talking about the golden calf. And that golden calf in the Old Testament meant that it was during the time of Taurus. All right? Now, Jesus was supposedly born during the time of what? The beginning of the Piscean age and the end of the age of Aries. That means 2,000 years before the age of Aries was the age of Taurus. So we're talking about, they took a 4,000-year-old mythology and anthropomorphized it into a human form. That's what anthropomorphize really means, is made into a human form. In other words, you took an ancient concept that was based on everyone's physical body and made it into one physical being and gave it traits of humanity. And now we see that Caesar Borgia picture that was done by Pope Alexander VI of the 1500s by Leonardo da Vinci as the picture now that has come up through the times within the Christian belief system and on the walls of the Christian beliefs. Right. And Michelangelo competed with Leonardo da Vinci in order to see who did the best picture, and Leonardo da Vinci beat out Michelangelo for the painting of Caesar Borgia, who was a homosexual, and him and Leonardo da Vinci had a homosexual affair. All right, because Pope Alexander, all right, was a Borgia. All right, and so that was his bastard son, as they say, illegitimate son. And that particular son, you know what I'm saying, is the individual in which that now that we have the Christian picture that we have. So when most of the time that we see that picture or variants of that picture, it came from that Caesar Borgia portrait from the 1500s. So this is the way that, and they attached the Serapis story to Caesar Borgia. And so they was able to make him as a Messiah coming from God, hence Pope Alexander VI. This is all the tricks that they've been doing here. You know? So this is all in a nutshell.
I had an experience actually he was working with some people. He got down some bamboo. And he was going to throw the bamboo away. But someone must introduce him to me, so he come to me to sell these bamboo.
Right.
Now I asked him how much he want for this bamboo. He got the same price. I said, I only have to hear the price. So he eventually came up with the price. He said, $600. So I said, what?
Right.
But something what you get free?
Right.
So I said, I wonder. But it dawned on me, I asked him where you get them, where the bamboo is. So he told me the bamboo is around by Brian. I know Brian. And it dawned on me right then, a girl who I know living right around by Brian, I got to call her and ask her why. I say in my mind, right, I should call her and ask her, how come she ain't done me Brian cut down all these bamboo?
Right.
So, not knowing, I don't know, I probably sent something up to the universe. Because a couple hours after that, Vince come to me and tell me, say, man, I know where some bamboo is. I said, what? Now you know how it come to me so serious. I couldn't confront him right then because I wanted it's true.
Right.
So I said, yeah. He said, right around with me, right on the corner. I said, wow. And I know Brian is around there.
Right.
So I said, I got to check that out. When I check it out, the bamboo was right there. So I started collecting right in the night. So I went back there this morning. Lo and behold, while I cutting, the same Asian guy came by. Right? I said, you see how good God is?
He's able to see you.
He said, Rasta, them said that they look good.
Right.
I said, but
see, you know where he got it from.
Yeah. I said, you see, I done right on your spot.
Right, right.
You know, and I didn't even know this was his spot. And he confirmed that when he come.
Right.
You know, I said, yeah. So I would like to know, how would I know?
Your intuition.
When I making these direct connection.
Well, there's two things going on. You have an instinct, which comes from your animal brain, which is your solar plexus, your navel chakra, and your root chakra. Those three is what is called your abdominal brain. Scientists found out that you have neural cells, not just in your brain, but also in your digestive system, small and large intestines, colon. This is why they tell you to clean out your system so you can think better. They don't even realize what they mean by that. Clean out your system and you can think better. Hold up, what I'm cleaning out, I'm cleaning out my small and large intestines because there's neurons there, which that helps with the thinking process and helps with your instincts so you can know what's getting ready to happen. So normally if something bad getting ready to happen, your instincts tap into it. In your case, you already knew something was wrong instinctively and your intuition clicked on. Now your intuition takes place from your throat, third eye, and crown chakra. Your heart is the mediator between your intuition and your instincts. All right? But the three highest chakras clicked on and he tapped into his intuition. So he was able to know instinctively that this was wrong. Let me call, in other words, and so that's how he was able to put all of that together because he's pure at heart. When you're pure at heart, you can do that.
I didn't think before.
No, you didn't have to. The body was already, your body was regulated, right? Your body is already regulated to the process of nature, you know?
Your emotions is what propels it
to come back, right? In other words, just like praying and meditation. My wife always say, prayer is a process that a person can do and give out, but how you receive is the meditation. So meditation is the way in order to receive. You meditated. That thought that you had was actually a form of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, and as small as it was, and so you received, and so the ancestors gave it back to you so that you would know, so that you can have a better condition.
That's what I understand this morning.
Mm-hmm.
When I get the confirmation, I said, wow, look what I did.
Right.
And I guess
I said, when I get the call, I let me see the real God, the truth.
That's how we used to communicate back in the day. Like we never spoke.
Right.
We were able
Right, it was psychic. Right. And prophecies is actually one of the the prophecy is actually one of the 9 fruits of Christ mentioned in 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. Prophecy is one of them. Miracles is one of them. You know, I wanted to say those two because I gave around 7 before, but those two also need to be in there as the 9. You know, when I was talking about the understanding, faith, knowledge, discerning the spirits, speaking in tongues, interpreting tongues, but those other two, you know, those need to be there. You know, prophecy, miracles, you know, healing. You know, these are the 9 gifts or the 9 fruits of Christ, as they say. And so when the Holy Spirit, which is prana or Kundalini, raised up through you, it actually gives you these gifts. You actually develop these gifts, you know. So you know when certain things can happen or won't happen, and you can actually change them by way of thought or by way of some type of ritual or mediumship yourself.
You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run